All set. Rolling left and rolling. Into the float. Slowing. Solo. Smoke on. Ready now. Arrowhead ready now. Three's in. Smoke on ready now. Over the top, 7-2 AGL. Power back. Back in with the pull. Alright, crossover break 6. And by 6. 6 out, ready now. And roll. Diamond ready now. Into the float. 4's in. Standby brake. Left brake ready now. Smoke.
The Air Force is a technology leader, providing unique opportunities for America's quality young men and women who want to serve their country. From ground crews to flight crews, the Thunderbird team reflects the training, precision, teamwork, and professionalism that is the United States Air Force.
Calculate the perimeter value of this 3/4 part of the square by adding together the three sides. 10 plus 10 plus 10 will give us our 30. Now then, we need to calculate half of the circumference of this circle.
Something a little differently with you. I want to show you how to do the plotting the x-coordinates and the y-coordinates. Make sure when you're doing the h-line, you do x-coordinates, and make sure when you're doing the z-line, you do the y-coordinates.
Two opposites within the same context, what do we have?
Paradox.
Paradox. So there's the toast. This is an ironic story.
And we'll start off with 50, 100, and 200 grams of accelerating mass eventually working our way up and try to prove if Newton's laws are viable.
That's what we all want for you, to succeed. You've probably heard a lot about this idea of an information age. Now, let me tell you that everything you heard about that is true. In fact, more. In our world of tomorrow, things like the computer, the robot, laser technology, high technology in general, all of these things are going to be all pervasive. Now, this simply means that you need to get those courses that are going to give you the most flexibility in career choice. That means you're going to need more mathematics. You're going to need at least through trigonometry. You're going to need the sciences, chemistry and physics included. You're going to need computer programming if at all possible. This idea of an information age, the pervasiveness of high technology is real. That means that no matter what your walk of life, whatever your career choice, whether it's ranging from engineering to being an artist or a philosopher, you're going to need that background at least at the high school level. So the message again is preserve your options. Take as much of this kind of material as you can and start now wherever you are in that career path in high school. Finally, let me wind up by saying this. It's very, very important to those of us in the university world to get you in those engineering classrooms. Yes, we do need more good students, but more importantly, most importantly, we need you in those classrooms for the good of our economy, the good of our nation, and where it stands relative to our foreign competitors. If we don't have good, solid, technically and scientifically trained people, we're not going to be able to do that.
If you open up your workbooks to the back, just before you get to the section of TVI guides, you'll find a formula page. It contains all of the formulas you will need this week. These are the basic formulas you'll need to stay current in today's high-tech Air Force. You'll be responsible for repairing and maintaining the most sophisticated Air Force systems. You'll need to work hard and pay attention during this course.
Electric squat switch that changes the selector valve and allows the main gear to come down and lock.
After I brake from about 45, when do I want to start feeling the buffet?
Okay, as you increase the back pressure, you start that moderate roll, you increase the back pressure, you'll feel the light buffet right in here. All right, and you keep that light buffet over to your point right in here.
Nose up. Left flap line up, left flap line down. All right. Right flap line up, left flap line down. Rudder left. Rudder left. Okay, ECU is normal. Okay, ECU is full. Go back down here. Okay.
Nestled in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, the United States Air Force Academy prepares tomorrow's leaders to help shape America's future. The Academy's military, academic, and physical training programs readies a select group of young men and women for their important role as professional Air Force officers. Working with the most current technologies in some of the finest academic and athletic facilities in the country, the Academy offers a challenging experience from the classroom to the playing fields of a wide variety of sports. The Academy is the first step towards an exciting and rewarding career in the United States Air Force.
Programming. So I've written a very short program on the board which should demonstrate to us the types of instructions you're going to expect to find in EDUCOMP and how they're executed.
datagram, we're measuring different quantities, such as, for instance, date commission versus total flight hours. What exactly are we looking for?
Here we use this one. Let's suppose we're testing two different training programs. And here we test to see just if there are any difference between the two.
About 4 hours, they sit back and they say, something's going wrong, our blitzkrieg isn't working right, what can we do about it? They're saying that we've got to change our strategy and our tactics at this point.
Payload, which flew recently on the space shuttle, containing 6 experiments. Some of the experiments are in this area. The canister itself flew in the front part of the payload bay while on orbit. It consisted of 6 experiments. 5 of them had to do with metals processing. The 6th experiment was microbiology.
Attention, mademoiselle. Attention, mademoiselle.
Beyond the horizon, there was never darker night, reaching and learning how earth and sky and water are as
satellite model counteracting a disturbance torque. If I turn off the gas jets, you can see the model slowly beginning to turn in the direction that we don't.
Solar powered communication satellite, which was the backup for Explorer 20, which was launched in 1960.
Survey all your options, and in an extremely complicated world, it's just not possible to look at everything from every possible angle.
This is the way to the future, and a link with the past. Mankind is flying now, and with energy unsurpassed. Reaching and learning how we make the earth and sky as
office upon which I'm about to enter. So help me God. Officers, dismiss.
Combat readiness demands constant training. For the members of the United States Air Force, this process begins in the Air Training Command. There, airmen learn the skills that are later perfected in other Air Force commands. A unique aerial survival school in the Nevada desert is the setting for Air Force flight and ground crews to combine their skills and meet the challenges of simulated combat. In a realistic environment, they learn the lessons that may one day save their lives. This exercise, an extension of daily Air Force training, is called Red Flag.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Larry Ryder. I'll be the aircraft commander today for this mission. we're going to support the red flag exercise at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, Nevada. We'll move the 59th Attack Fighter Squadron up to Nellis. Engineers, our fuel load will be 10,000 pounds. We'll make one aerial refueling en route. We'll take on about 10,000 pounds up there. Navigator will pick up the tanker about 60 miles north of Dallas on track 13. We'll drop off over Amarillo, Texas, and then shoot on up to Las Vegas for the landing. Does anybody have any questions? Let's go fly.
SAC has been tasked to support the 59th Attack Fighter Squadron during their red flag operations. For today's mission, we will launch 5 tankers to refuel 3 fighters each. We'll launch at 1-minute intervals, beginning at 1400 Zulu. Maintenance delays will launch free flow at the end of the screen.
Riverside, you've got 12,000 scattered, 22,000 scattered, 3 miles a day. Shouldn't be any problem. Okay. Have a good flight. Thank you very much. Okay, call sign today is Mountain 60, takeoff time 1000 local, in support of red flag. Flying for 3 hours. Fuel load today 70,000 pounds. We're going to be refueling 6 F-15s. Fueling airspeed will be 315, 641. We got a 36,000 pound offload. Height of range 12,000 feet. Anybody got any questions? Yeah. Okay. Let's press it up and go to the airplane.
The Red Flag Commander, and for the next 2 weeks we're going to subject you to the simulated combat associated with your first 8 or 10 combat missions. You'll be attacking realistic targets, those targets protected by the aggressors and F-5s, surface-to-air missiles, as well as anti-aircraft artillery, and your communications problem will be compounded by communications jamming. It's up to you at this point to put it all together, all that training that you've had up to this point in time, to get the best out of this particular exercise.
Okay, today, guys, our mission is going to be a combined mission of both sweep and force protection. Tony, you and I are going to be Eagle Flight, and we'll be responsible for the sweep part of the mission. We'll precede the strikers into the area, and we'll be responsible for maintaining air superiority, or in other words, keeping the red air off the strikers.
On takeoff, we're going close echelon up to Desert Rock. At Desert Rock, will be a right-hand turn to go north up toward Quartzsite. At Quartzsite, we'll be split into 2 elements. Barrow 1-3 and 1-4 will be staying at Quartzsite and liking to drop down to 10,000-foot block.
Ron, you'll be flying in Lion Flight, responsible for force protection with the strikers. Jack, you'll lead Wolf Flight, establish a roving cap in the northern area, and be responsible for protecting the strikers during egress. For sweep, Tony, you and I, we're responsible for air superiority. We'll try to search out for an entire time out there, primarily looking for red air.
Your job today will be to look for blue air-ground strikers. We want you to go ahead and strip the cap of the players coming inbound so that 1-3 and 1-4 are able to hit the strikers prior to getting to the target.
You got those
Those F-15s, a left-hand turn now. Brake left, we're up. 270, they're now 5 o'clock, about a mile and a half.
Roger, braking left.
Right behind him, 12 o'clock. I got him, going down. He's rolling out, stay with him. Raj, going with him. He's braking right. There he goes, don't lose him. Raj, he's on my nose, I still got him. He's rolling out, brake left now, brake left. Braking left. Turning with him. There he goes, popping up, watch him. Raj, I passed him, he's on my tail. 6 o'clock, crossing over, run him now, run it. Now, jig hard. I'm tracking, he's in my sights. Roger, confirmed hit. Mission completed. Roger, let's go home.
Sometimes the hair just ends up on the back of your neck, and you know you better take one last quick peek, and that's what happened today. I was flying down towards Portside. I knew Denny was engaged with the guys up at Reveille. I made a quick check and saw you sliding in, and I just pulled back, and that's where we ended up.
Okay, that was an excellent move because when you did that belly check, came back in. With the airspeed I had, I overshot and went to the outside.
4, it's Favors. Favors is going to win the gold medal. Alonzo Favors of the United States wins it. Ugly Vehicle got second, and McKay winds up third.
You never know what you can do until you try. To succeed, it takes education, training, and hard work. That's true in sports or this high-tech world we live in. You've got to go with the best. That's why I chose the Air Force as my place to succeed. The Air Force is a technology leader, offering education and training to young men and women from all walks of life. Check it out today. You can aim high and succeed in the Air Force.
It takes a lot of people to run an Air Force, and we have the best. America sleeps.
When my son Alonzo graduated from high school athletic honors, I was proud. When Alonzo received an appointment to the Air Force Academy, I was very proud. I was proud when Alonzo won 2 gold medals in the 1984 Olympic Games. But what made me most proud of all is when my son Alonzo became an officer in the United States Air Force. Do I really have to call you son?
It takes a lot of people to run an Air Force, and we have the best. Aim high, Air Force. America sleeps.
Roger, you have lot 114.
Aim high, Air Force.
I'm proud of the teamwork it took to win the 400-meter relay in the Olympics. It's the same kind of teamwork that makes the Air Force a winner. See your Air Force recruiter. Find out how you can be a part of the Air Force high-tech team. Aim high, Air Force.
It takes a lot of people to run an Air Force, and we have the best. Aim high, Air Force. While America sleeps. Aim high, Air Force.
Babers is going to win the gold medal. Alonzo Babers of the United States Air Force wins it.
Go for the gold. Aim high, Air Force.
Aim high, Air Force. Aim high, Air Force.
Watch it, Chuck. Keep your eyes open.
They're breaking at 11. Breaking at 11. Planes 9 o'clock coming around.
Mueller Fox to Baker. Engine on fire. Dropping back.
Baker to high squadron. Close up. Close up.
Fire at 10:30 coming around. 10:30 upper and lower.
B-17 out of control at 3 o'clock.
Come on, you guys. Get out of that plane. Bail out. There's one. He come
come out of the bomb bay.
Yeah, I see him.
What was that? What the hell was that?
It went by like we were standing still.
Blue leader to group. Get off the air. Maintain radio silence.
It went by like a rocket. What the hell was it?
What it was that day in 1944 was the Messerschmitt 262, the world's first operational jet fighter, the fastest thing flying, the superplane that Hitler wasted.
In 43, I was invited to test fly the Messerschmitt 262. This has been on the 22nd of May 43. I saw then the 262 for the first time. There were two prototypes in existence.
Lieutenant General Adolf Galland was one of Germany's leading aces in World War II. He shot down 104 airplanes. He became a general, the head of the Luftwaffe's fighter arm at 30. Later, he led a fighter pilot's mutiny, which is unique in German history.
So I was overwhelmed about the flight conditions and the performance of this aircraft. And I have proposed to concentrate all development and design power to make it operational. Flying the 262 jet for the first time was quite a sensation. The sensation is like an angel is pushing in the air. The 262 was about 200 kilometers per hour faster than the fastest Allied fighter. And with this superiority in speed, we could neglect the fighter. We could approach with a high speed of about 850 kilometers. And you got this sensation the fighters, the enemy fighters, are standing in the air like balloons. You went through them. Hitler did not believe, did not have confidence in this design, and late in 43 it was shown to him in East Prussia. I was present, and this aircraft came on a low level flight in front of him with high speed, and he said, I asked Messerschmitt, is this aircraft able to carry bombs? Messerschmitt, yes, my Führer, it can carry 250 kilograms, or 500 at least. And Hitler said, this is the Blitzbomber I've asked for since years. I give the order to build this aircraft only as Blitzbomber and to equip the bomber pilots with this aircraft. Of course, myself as general of the fighter arm, I did fight against this decision with all I could. I have asked successful fighter pilots like Steinhoff to fly this airplane and to talk to Hitler all the time and to try to convince him that this was the fighter we needed.
A restored 262 is on display at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. It comes from the commando unit of Johannes Steinhoff, a German ace with 176 victories. Steinhoff, later a general and chairman of NATO's military committee, recalls what happened when he spoke to Hitler.
I said, we need a new jet. And then suddenly he became angry and said, you mean the Messerschmitt 262? Forget about it. What a nonsense. I don't want that my people are all influenced continuously and want this aircraft as a fighter. This is not a fighter aircraft. It's a bomber aircraft. It's going to be my revenge against the invasion. If a fighter flies this in certain maneuvers, he's going to lose consciousness. My doctor has told me. So forget about talking about this damned aircraft. Next day, a message arrived at the units, the fighter units, saying any discussion if the Messerschmitt 262 is a bomb or fighter aircraft has to be stopped immediately. Signed, Hermann Göring.
how good a fighter airplane was the 262.
This airplane was twice as fast as a Messerschmitt 109. It had a fantastic armament. We had 4 guns, 30 millimeter, with air-to-air rockets, and we could take off and land on grass fields. If you approach from the rear at the highest possible speed, you put your bomber span right into the reticle, the gun sight. If it was fitting in the gun sight, your distance was 3,000 feet. At that point, you released the rockets. It was a 100% kill.
Was the 262 really that good? General Chuck Yeager was a combat pilot in Europe before becoming America's most famous test pilot.
Our first exposure to the ME-262 occurred in the skies over Europe in 1944. I happened to have shot one down with a Mustang only in the configuration that it's in now, meaning it had its gear and flaps down and was landing. The airplane was quite a surprise, especially the performance of the ME-262 was a very big surprise to us fighter pilots flying Mustangs, in that the airplane was about 150 miles per hour faster than our Mustang in straight and level flight. This is a good example of how discovering technology and putting it to use can really surprise your opposition. The 262, after the war, we returned quite a few of them to the United States, where they were flown against the Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star. And believe it or not, this airplane that was derived from the first jet engine that came out of Germany in 1939 and flew in 1942 and then was in operational use in 1944, actually had about the same performance, meaning 0.8 Mach number straight and level, an hour of internal fuel, as the Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star. And the Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star flew in 1944. As the war pressed on in Europe, it was interesting to note that when our ground troops overran many of the R&D facilities in Germany, we discovered that Germany had uncovered many, many secrets that we found profitable to our aviation industry after the war.
German aviation research during World War II was an absolute hothouse of design, far in advance of anything that the Allies had on the drawing boards. There was everything from intercontinental bombers to aerial aircraft carriers to vertical takeoff fighters. Even in the case of the Messerschmitt Me-262, they diluted their energies by pursuing many, many design elements. They had a prone bomber, they had a rocket-assisted interceptor, they had all sorts of advanced...
Walter Boyne, author and aerospace historian, is director of the National Air and Space Museum.
If the German engineers had their way, and if the German bureaucracy had not intervened in 1940 and 1941, and had they concentrated on creating the advanced metallurgy, the engine cooling, and the other techniques required to produce, mass-produce jet engines by 1943, they could have had a fleet of jet fighters which would have altered the air war in 1943 and 1944. The Germans' bureaucracy opted instead for the mass production of piston engine fighters, already clearly inferior to the American fighters on the scene. As a result, they chose an inexpensive option, which was catastrophically expensive. They lost the air war. The Messerschmitt 163 was the world's first operational rocket fighter. Designed in 1939, it flew over 600 miles per hour in 1941. Production was delayed until 1944 because of difficulties in testing. Messerschmitt, however, was producing 90 a month when the Allied offensive wrecked the subcontracting system. The first jet airplane in the world was the Heinkel HE-178. It flew just 4 days before the beginning of World War II. The Arado AR-234, the world's first operational jet bomber, had a range of nearly 1,400 miles and a top speed approaching that of the Messerschmitt 262. Near the end of the war, it appeared with 4 BMW engines. If this airplane had been available a year earlier, the Germans would have been able to reconnoiter all of England instead of being limited to the eastern part of the island. The Pulsejet V-1 flying bomb, which flew horizontally and created havoc in London, was very cheap and easy to mass produce. The V-2, the world's first ballistic missile, was forerunner of today's intercontinental missiles. It was used against London and against other European targets. The The Gotha GO-229 Flying Wing was scheduled to enter service in late 1945, had a top speed of over 600 miles per hour and a service ceiling of 50,000 feet. The Messerschmitt P-1101, a testbed jet fighter, had a ground-adjustable variable swept wing. The fast and tiny Wolfsjäger jet fighter, the Heinkel HE-162, was to have been flown by Hitler Youth after training in gliders. The Germans even had a wind tunnel tested design of a ramjet fighter that might fairly be called the progenitor of the TAV, the transatmospheric vehicle that someday will allow us to fly across the continent in minutes.
We also found hundreds of deadly Me-262s lined up on runways and sitting, partially fabricated, in wooded areas. Because Goering refused to allow the 262s to intercept the Allied bombers, the Luftwaffe aces tried to depose him. Goering called the act a mutiny. Galland was fired and narrowly escaped being shot.
First I was asked to leave Berlin, to leave Fighter Command, and when I came back against the order, I was put under house arrest for a week. I was planning to escape, but escaping was only feasible and possible to the east, and I didn't like these thoughts, and therefore I came close to the decision to suicide. A girlfriend of mine did approach Speer, and Speer, same night, went over to Hitler and told Hitler what was going on. So Hitler did stop it. But by ordering to give the proof that the 262 was an excellent interceptor, I'm sure he had the thoughts, this is better than let him suicide. And the chance to be killed in the last missions, the last 10 missions, was very high. But we didn't pay much attention for it. In these conditions and in this time, to be killed was nothing for us.
So Galland, a general, wound up commanding a squadron of 262s to attack our bombers. For this he called together Germany's remaining war aces. Steinhoff was one of them.
We went to a recreation camp for fighters where they were just sitting around and drinking. The war was lost. And just said, do you want to participate in flying beautiful aircraft? They said, right away, we come with you, and formed this unit in Munich till we had 12 aces. We had, let's say, 120 aircraft, had enough mechanics, and started flying with this aircraft. And I think very, very successful. It was a desperate time. It was a time where we had the feeling we have done what we could. We warned our leaders that they made the wrong kind of strategy, and we had a good feeling to finish this war with a good conscience.
Weeks later, Steinhoff hit a bomb crater on takeoff, crashed and burned. 1 week after that, it was Galland's turn.
I met this Marauder formation on the Danube near Neuburg, and I made an attack on them. I had rockets at this time, 24 rockets, 12 under each wing. This could be should released in salvos. But we had two safety switches for these rockets, and in the approach I forgot to lower one of the two, with the result that the rockets didn't go. But we had 4 30mm cannons in this aircraft on the nose, which resulted in a very concentrated fire, and I attacked the last of this formation, shot in fire, went down, and in going through this formation I shot the second one. But I didn't know if the second one was completely shot down, and I made a turn, and in this position, a Thunderbird came from high sky and shoot on me, and he hit me. Later on I found out this was Lieutenant Jim Finnegan from San Francisco.
And off to my left, watching some B-26 Marauders flying along, I looked down at the tail of the last one, and suddenly there were two objects flying toward them that I'd never seen before. It was so fast that I couldn't imagine anything going that fast. And suddenly, boom, a flash, and two of the B-26s just literally disintegrated in the sky. And then it suddenly dawned on me. These were the new ME-262 jets.
James Finnegan is now chief investigator for the District Attorney of Marin County, California.
As the one came flying back, I dropped my nose a little bit and watched him. And as he came across, again, a good 3,000 to 4,000 feet below me, I decided that with this baby, I could turn it on its back and put it in a dive, and believe me, nothing can outdive a P-47. It's so heavy that as I turned it, that's what I did. I turned it on a split S, pulled it through, and came back down on top of it. And as I did, here was that ME-262, right in my sights. In fact, this nose is so big that I had to pull it up a little bit to get a lead on this ship. I fired a 2-3-second burst, and suddenly I dropped the nose and I saw strikes hitting the right side of it, maybe toward the cockpit, and then it whoosh, to the left, turned and disappeared into the clouds. I went below it and tried to pull up to see it, and it disappeared completely. I returned to base with my wingmen. We were interrogated. I claimed a probable damage. The report went in, and the war went on for another 2 weeks, and I'd forgotten it. 1979, I received a telephone call from a young man who had recently graduated from a local university in San Francisco State. And the telephone call had to do with a 262, which had been shot down on that April 26th, 45 date. And he questioned me as to the color of it, which is best that I could remember, some 34 years later, was a mottled brown and green. And then he said, "Which way did it turn?" I said, "Turn to the left and up." He said, "Do you know who you shot down?" And of course, no, I didn't know who it shot. Nobody had any names on the fuselage. And he said, "You shot down General Adolf Galland." Well, I was not that much into World War II history, but the name Galland did ring a bell. And I said, "No kidding. That's great. That's great."
A few days after Galland was shot down, the war ended, and we were spared a convincing demonstration of what the ME-262 might have done. Suppose it had been used earlier, when Galland wanted it.
Had all of the ME-262s, which the Germans could have built, been pitted against the B-17s and B-24 bomber force, it probably would have extended the life of World War II at least a year. And as we like to say, it would have been very unfortunate because probably Russia would have owned all of Europe.
Well, if he'd been able to get it as early as he'd wanted it, say in very early 1944, it's entirely possible that the Allied air offensive would have been brought to a stop. This would have meant that the interdiction of the railroads and the invasion sector wouldn't have been possible. It might possibly have tipped the scales against the invasion. The ultimate outcome of the war was probably never in doubt if you consider the resources of the countries involved. But in 1944, a 1,000 Me-262s operating against the 8th Air Force would have been a catastrophic event for us.
If we would have used the Messerschmitt 262 in fighter operation, let's say only 100 of these 1,400 which have been built, I'm certain that we would have destroyed at least 200 in each day. This means the 262 could have made the first wave of attacks and they would have broken the formation. And then our fighters, our prop fighters, could do the rest. The day raids would have been stopped very soon. And the 262 totally used in fighter operation would have delayed the Allied progress in the West. This would have given the Russians more time to advance through Germany, so that the demarcation line would have come close to the Elbe. So the misuse of the 262 and the mistakes Hitler made with 262 finally did turn out in favor of Germany and also in favor of the Western countries today.
The Messerschmitt 262 is history. What lessons does it hold for us today?
The lesson of the Messerschmitt 262, as taught to us unwittingly by the Germans, is a difficult one because it means that you have to be smart enough to figure out which is the best option and stick to that option even if it happens to be the most expensive option. It's nice in research to be able to choose the least expensive way to a desired solution. It usually doesn't happen that way. The Germans opted not to take the risk of a 262. They paid the price.
The one thing that we found out a long time ago is that if you want to stay ahead of your competition, you better have an R&D program. And a good example was the Bell X-1. The one thing that airplane did was fly faster than sound. And up until it got through Mach 1, we didn't have any idea what the problems were in the region of the speed of sound. Now, the one thing that was uncovered with the Bell X-1 in 1947 was that the X-1 lost its elevator effectiveness. Otherwise, you lost the ability to fly the airplane at about 0.93 Mach number, or 93% of the speed of sound. And with the X-1, which had the capability of moving its whole horizontal stabilizer or whole tailplane, we found we were able to control that airplane through Mach 1 with the horizontal stabilizer. At that time, in 1947, the F-86 Sabre was on the drawing boards. And since the F-86 Sabre, which had a swept wing, was designed to dive to the speed of sound, we put an electrically trimmed horizontal stabilizer on the F-86. When the F-86 was in combat against the MiG-15 in Korea, the F-86 shot down about 10 MiG-15s for every F-86 we lost. Consequently, when we got our hands on the first MiG-15 in 1953 and flew it, we found out it had a fixed horizontal stabilizer and could not maneuver above about 93 Mach. That's how research pays off.
General Larry Scans is head of the USAF Systems Command, the research and development arm of the Air Force.
Well, I think there are a couple of interesting lessons. Perhaps the most fundamental one is that you have got to seize technology when you see the opportunity and advance it. And it wasn't that we didn't understand the fundamentals of jet propulsion, but just nobody grabbed onto it. The other lesson is sort of bureaucratic in the sense that the Germans did build the Me-262, and it was obviously going to be an extremely superior interceptor aircraft. Hitler wanted to make it a ground attack airplane, and that is what I would call a typical governmental bureaucratic decision, which is unrelated to the technical advantage that you have in that kind of machine. The lesson of the Me-262 is that a nation like the United States must put a premium on looking for and developing new technologies that buy you combat capabilities that will be far superior to what your potential adversary has. And if you're not looking and you're not sensitive to that, you're going to miss some things and discover them too late, and that's the case of what happened with the Me-262.
What was that?
It went by like a rocket. What the hell was it?
was the Messerschmitt 262, the superplane that Hitler wasted.